The night was especially cold that Monday in February when Officer Derek Vaughan patrolled Highway 191, a road that cut through Navajo territory in northeastern Arizona. It was past midnight and the darkness was dense, broken only by the headlights of the patrol car tearing through the empty asphalt. Derek had 32 years of police service. He had seen a bit of everything on the deserted roads of the American Southwest, from brutal accidents to armed confrontations that nearly cost him his life. But nothing, absolutely nothing he had experienced before could prepare him for what was about to happen on that frigid February night. It was exactly 1:13 a.m. when Derek spotted a light green Hyundai driving erratically down the road. The vehicle was gently zigzagging, nothing too aggressive, but enough to attract attention. Derek activated the hazard lights and siren, expecting another routine stop, probably someone driving under the influence of alcohol or simply too tired to be on the road. The car took a few seconds to pull over, which wasn't uncommon. Many drivers took a while to find a safe spot on the side of the road. When the Hyundai finally stopped on the dirt shoulder, Derek parked behind it, maintaining the standard safe distance. He picked up the radio and informed headquarters of the stop, providing the vehicle's license plate and its exact location. Headquarters confirmed receipt of the information, and Derek turned off the dashboard camera but kept the body camera he wore on his uniform active. That camera would be the only objective witness to what would follow, and its recording would be analyzed hundreds of times by investigators, human behavior experts, and eventually by millions of people on the internet trying to understand the inexplicable. Derek opened the car door and felt the cold night wind hit his face. The desert at night had a peculiar, almost oppressive silence, where every small sound seemed amplified. He turned on his tactical flashlight and began walking towards the Hyundai, his right hand instinctively close to his gun holster, a habit developed through years of training and experience. The license plate was dirty, covered in dried mud, but still legible. Derek looked at the car windows and noticed something strange. There was no movement inside the vehicle. Normally, when a police officer approaches a stopped car, the driver usually shifts, looks for documents, lowers the window, makes some movement that indicates awareness of the police presence. But there was none of that here. The car seemed empty, even though Derek had clearly seen someone at the wheel seconds before. He slowed his pace, increasing his caution. The flashlight illuminated the interior of the vehicle through the rear window. The seats were empty. There was no visible luggage, no sign of disorder. Everything seemed too normal, except for the complete absence of movement from the driver. Derek approached the driver's side window and tapped on the glass with his fingers, the standard tap all police officers use. "Officer, please lower the window," he said in a firm but polite voice. Nothing happened. Derek tapped again, this time harder. "Sir or madam, lower the window now." The body camera recorded every second, the angle perfectly capturing the driver's side window and part of the car's interior through the reflection. It was then that Derek saw something that made his stomach clench. A figure sat in the driver's seat, but not in a normal position. The person was completely still, face turned forward, staring fixedly at the windshield. Derek pointed the flashlight directly into the car's interior, and what he saw made every muscle in his body tense. It was a woman, or at least had the form of a woman, with dark hair falling over her face. But there was something profoundly wrong with her. The exposed skin of her arms seemed to have a greenish hue under the flashlight's light, and she didn't blink, didn't visibly breathe, didn't react in any way to Derek's presence. "Lower the window now, or I'll have to ask you to get out of the vehicle." Derek spoke more authoritatively, his hand now firmly on the gun in its holster. The figure in the car didn't move. Derek took 2 steps back, his training telling him to create distance from a potentially dangerous situation. He grabbed the radio strapped to his shoulder and was about to call for backup when the woman inside the car finally moved. But it wasn't a normal human movement. Her head turned slowly, very slowly, as if each degree of rotation required conscious effort. Her hair cascaded down her face, revealing features that made Derek take another step back. Her eyes didn't reflect the flashlight's light as normal human eyes should. Instead, they seemed to absorb the light, like two black holes in her pale face. Her mouth was slightly open, but there was no expression, no emotion, just a disturbing emptiness. Derek felt a shiver run down his spine, that kind of primal fear that comes from somewhere deep in the human brain, the part that still remembers the times when humans were prey and not predators. "Sir or madam, keep your hands where I can see them," Derek ordered, his voice now carrying a note of tension he couldn't completely hide. The figure in the car began to lower the window, the sound of the electric motor seeming strangely loud in the silence of the night. When the window rolled down completely, a smell hit Derek with almost physical force. It wasn't a normal car smell, nor perfume, nor the odor of food or cigarettes. It was something animalistic, wild, like the smell of an animal dead for days under the desert sun, mixed with damp earth and something else Derek couldn't identify, but which made his instinct scream to run. He fought the impulse, holding firm, but his hand gripped the butt of the gun. "Vehicle license and registration," Derek asked, trying to maintain the normalcy of the procedure. The woman in the car turned her face completely toward him, and for the first time, Derek could see her eyes clearly. They were too large, occupying a portion of her face that seemed anatomically incorrect. And the color, or rather, the absence of color, made it seem as if he were looking into empty tunnels. There was no defined iris, no clear pupil, just that black void that seemed to extend infinitely. Her mouth opened wider, and Derek saw something that chilled his blood. Her front teeth were normal, but when she opened her mouth even wider, he saw extra rows of smaller teeth behind the first ones, like a shark's teeth. Her tongue, when she moved it, was too long, too dark, and moved independently, like a snake. No sound came from her mouth initially, only that grotesque movement of her tongue. Derek took another step back, his brain trying to process what his eyes were seeing. Years of training battled against the primal instinct to flee. He knew he should do something, but every fiber of his being screamed that this wasn't human, that it didn't follow the rules of the world he knew. His hand trembled slightly as he still held the flashlight, the beam of light flickering gently. Then the creature spoke. It wasn't a normal female voice, nor a male one. It was something in between with a strange quality, as if multiple voices were speaking at the same time, but slightly out of sync, creating a disturbing echo. "Officer," the thing said, "is there a problem?" The words were correct, the intonation almost normal, but there was something fundamentally wrong with the way the sounds were formed, as if the creature were imitating human speech without fully understanding how it worked. Derek tried to answer, but found his throat was dry. He swallowed hard and forced the words out. "You were driving erratically. I need to see your license and registration." The creature continued to stare at him with those empty eyes. Slowly, very slowly, it moved its right hand toward the glove compartment. The movement was mechanical, unnatural, as if each joint had to be consciously controlled. As he watched the movement of the hand, Derek noticed more disturbing details. The creature's skin wasn't just pale or greenish. It seemed to have an off texture, very smooth in some places and rough in others, like a poorly fitting mask. The fingers were excessively long, with extra joints, and the nails were thick and yellowish, more like filed claws than human nails. When she opened the glove compartment, Derek instinctively placed his hand on the weapon. The creature took something from the glove compartment and held it out to Derek. It was a driver's license, but when Derek took the document, it felt too cold, as if it had been kept in the freezer. He glanced quickly at the photo on the license and felt his heart race even faster. The photo showed a completely normal human woman, young, smiling, with dark hair and ordinary brown eyes. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, 32 years old, address in Farmington, New Mexico. Derek looked from the photo to the creature inside the car and back to the photo. There was some superficial resemblance, the general shape of the face, the hair color, but it was like comparing a real person to a grotesque copy made by someone who had never seen a human before. "Sarah Mitchell?" Derek asked, his voice sounding strange even to his own ears. The creature made a movement that could be interpreted as a nod, but it was too stiff, too angular. "Yes," said the multiple voices, "that's my name." Derek felt a cold sweat trickle down his back despite the frigid night air. He looked at the license again, searching for any clue, anything that made sense. The date of birth, the address, everything seemed legitimate, but the creature in front of him was definitely not the woman in the photo. Derek picked up the radio again, keeping his eyes fixed on the creature. "Central, this is Officer Vaughn. I need you to verify a license for me," Derek said, trying to keep his voice steady. He read the license number to Central and waited. The seconds seemed to drag on as he kept his distance from the car. The creature didn't move. It just kept staring at him with those impossible eyes. Derek noticed that it didn't blink, not even once. Humans blink involuntarily. It's an automatic reflex. But that thing kept its eyes wide open, fixed on him. The dispatch center responded after what seemed like an eternity. "Officer Vaughn, the license is active with no pending issues. Registered for Sarah Mitchell, white woman, 32 years old." Derek thanked them and hung up the radio. He knew he should ask more questions, check the vehicle insurance, follow standard procedures, but every instinct he had screamed that he needed to get out of there, that he was in danger, that this wasn't a normal traffic stop. "Mrs. Mitchell," Derek began, choosing his words carefully, "have you had anything to drink tonight?" The creature tilted its head to the side, the movement resembling a bird studying its prey. "No," said the strange voice. "I don't drink." Derek nodded, trying to think of what to do next. He could ask her to get out of the car, administer a sobriety test, but the idea of being near that thing without the barrier of the vehicle between them made his stomach churn. That's when the creature did something completely unexpected. It smiled, but it wasn't a human smile. Its lips stretched far beyond what they should, revealing those impossible rows of teeth. The expression didn't reach its eyes, which remained dead and empty. "The officer is afraid," the voice said, and there was something almost amused about it, as if the creature was savoring Derek's terror. "I can smell your fear." Derek felt his legs tremble. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't a normal traffic stop. This wasn't anything his years of training had prepared him for. He took another step back, his hand now firmly gripping the gun in its holster, but without drawing it yet. Part of his brain was still trying to rationalize. Maybe it was a person with some rare medical condition. Maybe it was special makeup. Maybe he was having some kind of hallucination due to lack of sleep. But then the creature began to emerge from the car. The movement was too fluid, as if bones didn't exist, as if the body were made of something malleable that could mold itself into any shape. When she was completely standing beside the car, Derek realized she was too tall, at least 2 meters, maybe more. Her arms hung strangely at her sides, too long, almost reaching her knees. She wore a simple dress that looked dirty and torn in places. "I'm leaving now," the creature said, that multiple voice echoing strangely in the empty desert. Derek couldn't answer. His throat felt like it had completely closed up. He just stood there, watching as the creature circled the car with those fluid, unnatural movements. It opened the driver's side door and began to get back into the vehicle, bending its body in ways that should have been impossible. Derek finally managed to find his voice. "Wait," he said, but the word came out weak, almost a whisper. The creature stopped and turned those empty eyes to him once more. "Yes, officer?" she asked, her head tilted at that impossible angle again. Derek tried to think of something to say, some reason to stop her, but his brain seemed to have shut down, unable to process the absurd situation. "Nothing," Derek finally said. "You can go." The creature flashed that awful smile again and climbed completely into the car. Derek watched as it started the engine, a common and reassuringly normal sound amidst the madness of the situation. The Hyundai began to move, slowly pulling off the shoulder back onto the highway. Derek stood there, watching the car's taillights fade down Highway 191 until they disappeared completely into the darkness. It was only when the car had completely disappeared from sight that Derek realized he was trembling violently. His legs felt like they were about to give way, and he had to lean on the hood of his patrol car to avoid falling. His heart was pounding so hard, he thought he might have a heart attack right there. He spent several minutes just breathing deeply, trying to calm the panic that threatened to completely overwhelm him. When he finally managed to move again, Derek got back into the patrol car and picked up the radio. He needed to report what had happened, but how? How could he explain to headquarters that he had just had an encounter with something that shouldn't exist? He knew how it would sound, knew they would probably think he was having some kind of nervous breakdown or that he was under the influence of drugs. But he had the body camera, he had evidence of what happened. Derek picked up the radio, and his voice still trembling, reported that the traffic stop was over and that he was returning to normal patrol. The dispatch center confirmed this, and Derek hung up the radio. He couldn't continue patrolling, not that night. He called dispatch center again and said he wasn't feeling well and needed to end his shift early. Fortunately, the supervisor understood and authorized Derek to return to the station. All the way back, Derek couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. He'd grown up hearing stories about skinwalkers, the creatures from Navajo mythology that could assume human and animal forms. These were stories the natives of the region took very seriously, but Derek had always considered mere folklore, superstition. But now he wasn't so sure. What else could explain what he'd found on that deserted road? When he arrived at the police station, Derek went straight to the evidence room and removed the body camera. He needed to see the recording, needed to confirm that it had really happened, that it wasn't some kind of hallucination or dream. He connected the camera to the computer and began watching the recording. And there it was, every disturbing second captured in high-definition video. The approach to the car, the first glimpse of the creature, the horrifying smile. It was all there. Derek watched the recording 3 times, each viewing confirming that it was real, that it really happened. He noticed details he hadn't perceived at the time, such as the way the creature's shadow moved independently of its body, or how its eyes seemed to glow slightly at certain angles, reflecting the flashlight's light in a way that human eyes never could. He saved a copy of the recording on a personal drive, something telling him that having a backup might be important. The next day, Derek had to write an official report about the traffic stop. He struggled with words, trying to decide how much to reveal. In the end, he wrote a standard report, mentioning only that he had stopped a vehicle for erratic driving, checked the driver's documentation, and released the vehicle. He didn't mention the woman's strange appearance or his own terror during the encounter. He attached the body camera footage to the report, as was standard procedure. It was Derek's supervisor, a 20-year veteran named Tom Harrison, who first watched the recording as part of a routine review of police activities. Tom called Derek into his office that same afternoon. The expression on Tom's face was difficult to interpret, a mixture of concern and disbelief. "Derek, we need to talk about that." "Recording from last night," Tom said, indicating a chair. Derek sat and waited. Tom played the recording on the computer, pausing at specific moments. "Did you see that?" Tom asked, pointing to the frozen screen showing the creature's face turned toward the camera. Derek nodded. "Yes, I saw it. I was there." Tom was silent for a moment, studying the image. "Derek, in all my years on the service, I've never seen anything like this. What the hell is this thing?" Derek shook his head. "I don't know, Tom. Honestly, I don't know. But it wasn't human, I'm sure of that." Tom sighed deeply and rubbed his face with his hands. "Do you know how this will look when it becomes public? People will think we edited the video, that it's a prank, that we're trying to gain internet fame." Derek understood the concern. "What do you want me to do?" Tom thought for a moment before answering. "For now, let's keep this internal. I'll send the recording for forensic analysis to see if they detect any manipulation, or technical anomaly. I'll also make some discreet inquiries to see if anyone else has reported something similar in this area." Derek nodded. It made sense, but deep down, he knew the forensic analysis wouldn't find anything wrong with the recording because there was nothing wrong. It was real. The following days were difficult for Derek. He could barely sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those empty eyes and that impossible smile. He began researching skinwalkers and other creatures from Native American folklore. The stories were consistently disturbing. Skinwalkers were Navajo sorcerers who had violated sacred taboos and gained the ability to transform into animals using their skins. They were considered extremely dangerous and malevolent. A week after the incident, Tom called Derek into his office again. This time, there was another person there, an older man whom Tom introduced as John Begay, a Navajo elder who worked as a cultural consultant for the police department. John had a calm but serious presence, and his dark eyes studied Derek carefully as they greeted each other. "Officer Vaughn," John began, his voice deep and measured, "Supervisor Harrison showed me your recording. I'd like to hear from you in your own words what happened that night." Derek told the whole story, leaving out no detail this time. He described the strange smell, the unnatural movements, the multiple voices, everything. John listened without interruption, nodding. Occasionally, when Derek finished, John was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "What you found on that road, Officer Vaughn, my people have known for centuries. We don't talk much about them with outsiders, because drawing attention to these things can be dangerous, but I believe you deserve to know the truth." John spent the next hour explaining about skinwalkers, how they were created, how they operated, and most importantly, how to protect oneself from them. "You were lucky," John said gravely, "very lucky. That thing could have easily killed you on that deserted road. The fact that it didn't means either it wasn't hungry or you had something protecting it." Derek felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't feel lucky. He felt traumatized, permanently changed by what he had seen. "What do I do now?" Derek asked. "How do I deal with this?" John reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small leather pouch tied with a cord. "Keep this with you," he said, handing the pouch to Derek. "It contains sacred herbs and other protective items, and don't talk about what you saw. The less attention you give it, the better. These creatures are attracted to fear and attention." Derek took the pouch and carefully tucked it into his pocket. He thanked John, and both men left Tom's office. The forensic analysis of the recording returned no surprises. There were no signs of digital manipulation, no technical anomalies that could explain the disturbing images. The recording was completely authentic, at least from a technical standpoint. Tom decided to classify the report as confidential and restrict access to the recording. Officially, the traffic stop was recorded as a routine incident without consequences. But stories take on a life of their own, especially in small police departments where everyone knows each other. Rumors began to circulate about the strange recording from Derek's body camera. Other officers started asking questions, wanting to know what he had really seen that night. Derek tried to be discreet, following John's advice, but human curiosity is hard to control. 3 months after the incident, someone within the department leaked the recording. Derek never found out who it was, but suddenly the video was all over the internet. Within days, it had millions of views. Special effects experts analyzed every frame looking for signs of falsification and found none. Skeptics argued that there must be a rational explanation, perhaps a person with severe deformities or someone using elaborate Hollywood prosthetics. But the people who knew the region, the natives who had lived on those lands for generations, they knew the truth. The comments from Navajo users on the videos were consistent. Warnings not to watch at night, not to draw attention to it, not to provoke these things. Some commented that they had seen similar things, that Highway 191 was known for skinwalker activity, especially on new moon nights. Derek tried to return to his regular job, but found he couldn't. Every traffic stop made him tense. Every car in the darkness seemed to potentially harbor another creature. He began having panic attacks during night patrols. After 6 months of struggling, Derek finally requested a transfer to administrative work during the day. Tom understood and approved the request. Derek's life was never the same after that February night. He became a semi-known figure in circles that discuss paranormal phenomena, although he rarely gave interviews or participated in public discussions. When pressed, he always said the same thing, that he had seen something that night that defied explanation, something that fundamentally changed his understanding of the world and what was possible. The recording still circulates on the internet, incessantly analyzed by believers and skeptics. Some people see undeniable evidence of the supernatural. Others see only a strange video that probably has some mundane explanation that we haven't yet discovered. But Derek Vaughan knows the truth. He looked into the eyes of something that shouldn't exist, felt the primal terror of being in the presence of a real predator, and survived to tell the tale. To this day, Derek keeps the small leather pouch that John Begay gave him. He never patrolled Highway 191 at night again, and on the rare occasions when he drives that road during the day, he speeds a little more than he should, eager to leave that particular stretch of asphalt behind. Because he knows that out there, somewhere in the desolate lands of northeastern Arizona, is a creature that doesn't follow the rules of nature as we know it. A creature that doesn't follow the rules of nature as we know it. I walk towards the next unsuspecting person who crosses my path on a cold, dark night.